All right, good. Are you both on mute? So first of all, welcome everyone to another edition of RecTech Live here on Thursday. Glad to present a non-COVID-19 topic for you all. And seems like you're all looking for some escape from reality. So we're happy to provide that today with our two friends from Recruitics. We've got Emily Tanner here, the VP of Marketing, and Kat Gusefa, one of their Google AdWords specialists, on the call with us. And it's quick, we'll do some shout outs here first to start. So we've got a pretty big call today, 57 people live right now, almost 150 are registered. Hey, David from Minnesota. Hey, Stephanie from Costa Rica. Nice. Evie's here, Emily, Craig, Sheila, Adriana. Lots of people coming in on the stream here. So feel free to just say hello on the chat. Tell us where you're from, what company, what state, what city, whatever, and let us know what's going on. A few housekeeping notes to get started. So first of all, a replay will be available after this call. I'll also give the replay to Recruitics as well. They'll share it. I'll put it up on the RecTech Media YouTube channel as well. And it'll be available almost immediately afterwards on this very same link. So you can use the same link to go watch the replay. And I'll also push it out through our social media channels across RecTech Media overall. So quick shout out to my friends at Emissary. If you need some text recruiting in your life, it's also great for HR as well. In fact, one of their clients is using it for sick requests. They're creating short codes for their employees in this time of crisis to use that for to call out sick with. So interesting uses of texting in HR today. And we've got 2 polls today as well. So feel free to click on the polls and answer those. First one is, have you ever used Google Jobs before? Or are your jobs listed on Google for Jobs, I should say? Feel free to let us know. And then secondly, have you ever used Google AdWords to promote jobs in your TA organization overall? So feel free to answer those questions, and we'll kind of review them at the end as well. You can ask questions on the Ask a Question section. We'll kind of save time at the end to do that. And I guess that's about it at this point. So let's bring on Emily and Kat. We've got some slides as well. So Emily, you want to pull those up? We'll start sharing those, and she'll tell us what we're going to learn today and kind of go from there. So.
And we're going to hit a few different things here. We're going to introduce Google. There's some really interesting stats around Google as a whole that I think we want to start off with. And then we're going to go into Google for Jobs, Google AdWords, Gmail ads, and a few bonus ways to use Google. So definitely stick around to the end. During the webinar, please put your questions in, and we will get to as many of those at the end as we can. So Chris mentioned I am Emily Tanner. I'm the VP of Marketing at Recruitics, and we are a recruitment marketing agency. And we have Kat Gusefa on the line as well.
Sure. Thanks, Emily. So as Emily mentioned, I'm a paid search strategist, and I manage all the paid search campaigns as well as GDN, YouTube, and Gmail for all of our clients in Recruitics.
Awesome. And Chris?
Yep, Chris Russell, RecTech Media. So my job is to help educate and inform the modern recruiter out there. So I do that through podcasts, through webinars like this, through our blog, and a bunch of other different news sources for the recruiting industry. So thanks for inviting me to be part of this, Emily.
Awesome. So in case anyone doesn't know who Recruitics is, I mentioned we are a data-centric recruitment marketing agency. We make it easy for the world's leading brands to attract and hire top talent. So that is kind of the summary of what we do. And for anyone who doesn't know about Chris and RecTech Media, I'll let him give a little intro there.
Yep. So we do rectechlive.com. I do these webinars on Thursdays usually. It's usually a mix of vendors teaching stuff. I teach stuff as well. And bringing things to life like this particular episode is exactly. The RecTech podcast, I do talk about recruiting technology with vendors and practitioners out there. So definitely check that out if you have some time on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm a former corporate recruiter. Excuse me. do a lot of consulting as well for both vendors and employers on the kind of recruiting marketing side of things as well. So that's how I spend my days these days.
Awesome. All right, so let's dig in. Let's talk about why employers should want to consider Google at all as a channel in terms of recruitment marketing. So let's start first with the whole idea of Google, right? Google is the #1 global search engine in the world. It has 92% market share as of February 2020 across the globe, which is amazing, especially knowing that some countries have their own search engines and some countries don't allow the use of Google. So even despite those things, Google is the #1 search engine in the world. It has about 63,000 searches every second on average, which results in over 5.5 billion searches per day. And that results in trillions of searches per year, as you can imagine. So it is a massive, massive channel for all things, really. And I'm sure every person on this call has Googled something, maybe even today. On average, a person will Google 3 to 4 things each day. So when you break that down, that ends up being, 1.5 or so billion people every single day using Google, which again is massive. And Google is still growing. So even though it was launched in 1998, I believe, you see the exponential growth of the Google usage. And this particular graph is only through 2012, but you see how fast it grew. And it's continuing to grow even still 10 to 15% on average each year. So what's really valuable about that is, thinking about 1.5 billion people every day, even though they're not necessarily searching for jobs, everybody is a job seeker to some extent, right? They may not be actively searching, but they are potential candidates that you may be able to tap into. So it's a market you don't want to ignore. And with that said, there are people looking for jobs on Google, a lot of people. We have about 300 million job searches a month that relate to employment terms. And it's about 30% of all Google search behavior that does relate to jobs and employment and vocations. We've also seen that almost 80% of people actually start their job search on Google. And even that process to research employers or potential career paths, that's all happening on Google, which is quite fascinating. What's also interesting to note is that varies a little bit by generation, as you can imagine. So for instance, millennials actually come in a little bit above that at around 83% who actually start on Google. And then baby boomers are actually a little bit below that, where they are only around 53% or so that actually start their process on Google. So it does vary, but on average, about 80% of people are starting their job search on Google. When we look at trends with job searching on Google, there's quite interesting behaviors that happen annually. So this is a 5-year look worldwide. And what you start to see is that searches around jobs do follow a typical seasonal trend where they are highest in the beginning of the year. After the new year, people consider new jobs. They have resolutions that they want to keep. And then they kind of fall down throughout the year, hitting a low around November, December. And then they pick right back up in January. So this is typically something we see year to year. Now, it does vary by industry. So as you can imagine, seasonal jobs, for instance, in the retail space, for one example, they don't follow necessarily that same trend. They tend to be kind of flat throughout the beginning of the year, and they kind of peak maybe August, September, October until about mid-November or so, and then they fall again. So while we look at trends, we do dig into trends at different levels because trends are simply high level, right? There's going to be variances at industry, company, job level information. So, I don't want to hit COVID too much because I know we're just so in depth on that, but I want to hit it just a little bit because it is, a hot topic right now and something we're all dealing with. So what I think is interesting to look at is the Google search trend around coronavirus obviously is exponentially growing recently. But I also looked at the past 90 days of job search trend, and we're not yet seeing anything major that correlates. And even though we're seeing a little bit of a decline on the job search trend line recently, it actually is following that typical seasonality that I mentioned. So usually we have that high in January and it drops as we go through the year. Nothing is standing out substantially here. Now, what we do see, and I'm not going to get too far into it now, is that I dug into some healthcare terms. And so, for instance, travel nursing is one that we're seeing more correlation with the coronavirus searching. And we're actually going to do a future webinar on healthcare specifically, because I think it's just so important. So be on the lookout. We're going to send out information in a couple of weeks. We're going to do another webinar on healthcare. But for now, across the board, job search trends are not correlating to the coronavirus impact just yet. So that's the intro to Google. The 3 things we're going to dive into at this point are Google for Jobs, Google AdWords, and Gmail ads. So I'm going to start with Google for Jobs. And Chris, if you want to jump in, just be loud because I have my volume down. So.
I do have my hack. I'll share at the end, though.
Yeah. So with Google for Jobs, you know, the job search before Google for Jobs was quite simple. People would come through Google, put in keywords, and get results that were heavily dominated by job aggregators and job boards. And that is primarily driven by SEO, right? So we tend to see a lot of these results of Indeed, Glassdoor, Snag, ZipRecruiter. Not a lot of employers were really having the SEO value to be served upfront on non-branded terms. That actually did change with Google for Jobs, which is quite interesting. So now Google for Jobs is a module that shows up above the organic search results, and it gives employers an opportunity to actually show up above the typical organic results, but also these job boards and aggregators are still showing up as well. So in this particular example, you can see Chico's right at the top here, but also Snag a Job. So, you know, there is still a little bit of an impact there, but it does give employers a bit of an opportunity to show up above the others. And Google for Jobs is interesting because it's not technically a job board. You cannot just post a job to Google for Jobs, but it's more of a job search experience, right? It's really focused on candidate experience within the Google platform and within the Google experience. So what I think is really interesting is that they have focused on candidate experience very heavily, and they provide you know, options for candidates that are quite helpful. So within the search, they give you many filter options as a candidate. They give you options on how you want to apply. They give you email alerts that you can turn on very simply. If they have the information on the web, they pull in salary estimates, they give you ratings of that employer, and even sometimes commute information. So the experience here is critical for the candidate, and that's, I think, why people have resorted to starting at Google, because it just provides so much information for a candidate. So the big question we get asked all the time, you know, is how do I get my jobs on Google, right? You can't post a single job there, like I mentioned. It's not like a job board, but there are ways to get your jobs there. So there's 2 primary ways to do that. One is that you can directly integrate your jobs to Google through job posting structure data or schema, which is a bit of a technical thing, but it's absolutely doable. You work with your agency, your ATS, you know, whoever is hosting your jobs and your career site, they should know how to do this, okay? So it's going to be a matter of implementing some requirements in the HTML of your jobs in a format that Google requests. And they have their structured data requirements and their guidelines on the web. We can send that out to everyone later. But if you haven't done this already, this is definitely a good thing to do when you have a career site with jobs online. And then that way, Google will automatically pull your jobs in. And anytime you make updates, you turn a job off, you add a new job, it all happens automatically. So that's one way, a very good way to get your jobs on Google. Secondarily, you can actually advertise your jobs on certain third-party sites that are partnered with Google. So as you saw in my one screenshot, Snag a Job was there right under Chico's. So for instance, you can work with and put your jobs on ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Snag a Job. There are a bunch of sites out there that are partnered with Google to integrate with them. So, you know, that's the other way that you can also get your jobs there.
Hey, Emily. Tracking pixels. Does Google put a UTM code on all their links?
Chris, sorry, if that was a question, I did not hear you.
Yep. Does Google put a UTM code on all their links for tracking?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I actually have a slide in a couple of slides about tracking.
Cool.
And actually, right after this one, I'll talk about tracking. So just what we've noticed is about 37% of Fortune 500 companies have integrated their jobs directly with Google, and the others are right now using that secondary option of advertising jobs to get them there. But to your question, how is it tracked, right? Or how can I track my traffic from Google for Jobs? So it is based on UTM tags that Google adds automatically for the ones that are directly integrated. So basically, when you look in Google Analytics, which is where your UTM tag information shows up, Google for Jobs automatically identifies this as a UTM source, Google Jobs Apply, and the UTM medium organic. So if anyone has access to the Google Analytics for their career site or their jobs pages, that's where you would want to go within Google Analytics. And if anyone doesn't know how to do this, we can certainly show you, it's within the acquisition section of Google Analytics, looking for this particular source and medium. And I wanted to pull an example here. So I actually took one of our customers. This is a healthcare customer in particular. And I also sorted the traffic to only the job pages, because the only traffic that Google for Jobs is going to send to you is going to be to individual jobs. They're not going to send traffic to like your career site homepage or anything like that. So I looked at only the job page traffic for this particular healthcare customer, and Google for Jobs was the #3 organic traffic source to their jobs in 2019 after Indeed and direct traffic, which I think was quite interesting, especially for being somewhat new of a source, a couple years old. So I know that you guys are asking questions throughout. Just a quick reminder that you can continue to do so. And we will hit all of our big questions at the end, or as many as we can. And if we can't hit them, we will follow up with you directly. So as we get into Google AdWords, this is something that, another way that employers should consider using Google, and it can be very valuable. So from one instance, it can increase your employer brand awareness up to 80%. And this is general statistics about Google Ads, not specific to employment or jobs, but it does help build brand awareness. And your paid ads show up above the organic and often above the Google for Jobs module as well. So this gets you top priority on the Google search results page. 75% of users of Google say that ads actually make it easier to find the information that they're looking for. And almost half of all clicks on Google actually go to the top 3 paid ads at the top of the first page. So most of the traffic that happens on Google ends up being on the paid ads at the top, or a lot of them. When we look at job-related terms, we're seeing an average cost per click right around $2. But again, that varies heavily by industry, job type, company, and your specific brand awareness, and a variety of other things. So that's just an average across the board. So one way you can use Google Ads in particular is to support your employer brand, and you can use branded keywords for this. And oftentimes branded keywords are highly cost effective. Branded keywords are typically very affordable. Sometimes I've seen them be 10, 20 cents, per click, which is crazy cheap. But it gets you this extra branding and positioning on the page, which is very valuable. And you can use the messaging in the ad to support your brand, as I mentioned. So here in this KPMG example, they're bringing their employer brand and their EVP messaging to the forefront for candidates as they're searching. You can also use branded keywords, of course, to drive applicants directly. So that's another way that you can use your own terms in a cost-effective way. And yes, your organic results are there. And yes, your jobs may be on Google for Jobs. But again, this guarantees that top position. And half of all clicks, as we mentioned, do go to paid ads. So it gets you right there. And also it allows you to control the messaging specifically. So here in this ad, this Mayo Clinic ad, for example, they're trying to get nurses to apply today. That's their call to action. And while they are the #1 organic result right below it, that organic result for them is not necessarily around nurses and applying, right? So they have that extra control of the messaging right above there. You, of course, can also use non-branded keywords, and you should. So this is where you're going to put in, keywords around nurse jobs or delivery driver jobs or certain jobs in a specific location, right? So this is where you get a little more abstract and where cost per click will go up a little bit, but this is going to be where you get those candidates that don't necessarily know about you as an employer. And this is highly valuable across the board. So we looked at our data. We just pulled a very high level benchmark here, but looking at our 2019 campaigns that we were running for our customers, the average cost per click was around $3, and the average CPA, which is in a completed application for almost all of our customers, is around $14, which the CPC may seem high if you're comparing to something like an Indeed or Glassdoor pay-per-click campaign, but then you see the conversion rate here being great at a 20%, and the CPA is quite affordable at $14. So this is an average. This is across industries, across clients. Of course, every industry client will vary. Budgets make a difference here. The conversion path that you have around your application process will have an impact here. So, this is not necessarily a goal for every company, but this is an average. So it shows how effective that Google Ads can actually be. And again, I'm not gonna, hype COVID right now. We're all trying to get a little break, but I do want to just mention the impact that's starting to happen to paid ads on Google. So this is from WordStream, which is a very a very good paid search company, and they work with all consumer brands and across the board. And what they're seeing right now is a below average amount of traffic just in the past few weeks from Google Ads, and also a slight drop in conversion rate. So that's interesting. We always want to understand what's going on in the world and how that's impacting what we're doing in recruitment. But these are not recruitment specific things. So, there is hope. I don't want to be negative. There is hope. So what we're actually seeing from a jobs perspective at this point is that, in some areas, as I mentioned, like travel nursing or some other healthcare areas, traffic is actually increasing a little bit. And especially where people are losing jobs, they're now going online to search for jobs. So we're actually seeing the search behavior start to pick up, and that conversion rates at this point have not changed drastically. So that's a good thing. The only exception to that is we're starting to see a little bit in healthcare. The conversion rates are slightly declining. So we're going to constantly keep an eye on this. And of course, we always want to make sure that any campaigns you're running, whether it's Google or something else, that you're understanding the impact of what's going on in the world around us, right? So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Kat to speak to this really cool, unique way to use Google with Gmail ads. And Kat, again, I'm going to try and turn my volume up a little so I can hear you, so I can move on the slides when you're ready, okay?
Thank you, Emily. So what are Gmail ads and why do you want to use it? Gmail ads became available on Adwords as a display placement in September 2015, but only with the introduction of the new interface, it became possible to create Gmail-specific campaigns and use Gmail templates to create Gmail ads. Gmail ads do run on the CPC basis, and they appear on the top of the Gmail users' inboxes under promotions, and they are marked with an ad sign next to them. So when and why would you use Gmail ads for your purposes? Gmail ads could be used to supplement your existing search and display campaigns or run on their own. They're great for employer brand promotion, but they also work as a great direct response tool. That means your main purpose to run campaigns is to attract users to your website to complete an action, in this case, to complete the job apply. Many of our clients have used it to bring awareness and boost traffic to their job career events. So this is how the Gmail ad look like when it's expanded. There are two views for the Gmail ad. One is collapsed Gmail ads that looks exactly like any other email on your inbox. And expanded view, this is how they look like when users click on them. That's also when the advertiser is being charged for the click. So it's not when they click to your website, it's when they click to expand your ad. To start running Gmail ads, you would need several creative components, graphics, which is the square logo, marketing image that you can see on the screen right now, and an optional header image, and text. This is the advertiser's brand name, headline, description, and call to action, which is optional but highly recommended because in our case, it could be apply now or register now for an event. And expanded text Gmail ads can also include not only text, but also an image, a video, and the call to action. So Emily right now has a view of the expanded and collapsed mobile Gmail ad. And what you really need to know about mobile ads is that they look a little bit different because of the limitations of the mobile screens. So what's important to remember there is only 45 to 50 characters of your description line will be displayed, depending on the screen size, of course. So it's very important to put all the important information that you want everyone to see up front on your ad, such as the job title you advertising for, the location of the job or of the event, any details about the event, timing, date, or any sign-up bonuses for a job, anything you want them to know. It's basically like the sale information on the consumer ads. You want them to click on that based on that information. And then you can put all the other information in the expanded version of the ad. When users click to expand the ad, they can take several other actions. They can forward this as a regular email to their friends or colleague. They can save it to their inbox to come back later if they want to apply later or visit your website later. Or they can click to the website right away. All of these metrics will be recorded as KPIs on your Google Ad campaign, and we can report on them.
Hey, Kat, I have a question.
Sure.
How do these? Oh, okay. Here we go. So I was going to ask you, how do they compare to regular Google AdWords in terms of CPC and click-through rates?
Yeah, absolutely. So we also pulled the data from the previous year for the clients we advertised on Gmail for, and the average CPC is between 15 and 25 cents. But please remember that it will highly vary by the location or the brand recognition or the jobs you're trying to advertise for. For example, the same restaurant client could perform differently in different locations, and two different restaurant clients could perform completely differently based on their brand recognition in one location. And the click-through rate usually between 10 and 25% on average for the Gmail campaign, which is much higher than what we usually see on Google, which is around 2% on average. But that's simply because this is a different click. This is to expand the ad, again, not click to the website.
Okay.
So this is what clients are being charged for, and this is what's being measured under the CTR for Google Gmail ads. But what we also saw for a very interesting and highly competitive client in healthcare, again, that when we started running Gmail ads for them, we've seen a 50% increase in conversions, which in that case was click to apply. So not the completed application, but click to apply. It increased by 50% on average with the supplement of the Gmail ads. So this is a very cool example of why you want to use Gmail ads for your clients as well.
It's it's pretty cheap. I mean, it seemed really cost efficient.
Yeah, it's very cost efficient like any other display campaign. But because it's in people inboxes, it guarantees that pretty much everyone who uses Gmail would see it unless they're not falling into your targeted audience.
Yeah.
And you are in control of that. Or they have the ad block enabled in their browser, and then they won't see it, and probably corporate email clients who uses Gmail for their corporate network, they won't see it as well. But still, many people would see it.
And you to create a Gmail ad, you do that within AdWords, I assume.
Yes. So you can use your own HTML template to create those expanded ads. But what Google recommends is to use their own template. And that's what you can see on the screenshot that Emily provided. And the reason behind it is that this will guarantee that your ad will show up appropriately on most of the devices and browsers. Because if you use your own HTML template, it might be more rich and more pretty, but then it might look weird in some of the browsers because it might not be supported.
Gotcha.
Okay. I think I'm hearing, so we can move on. Kat, that was awesome. I think the Gmail ads are just such a unique way to use Google for employment and for jobs and for hiring events and your employer brand. And it's not something that a lot of brands have tried out yet. And because of the results that we're seeing, especially when it comes to healthcare and hospitality, I think it's something that's definitely worth a shot. And, we are a data-centric company. So I think, one of our mottos is try everything, track everything, and then do what works and really look at the metrics behind what's happening and understand where performance is good and where it isn't. So Gmail ads is definitely worth a shot. Google has so much more. We only hit 3 things, and there's a couple of bonus things I want to show, and there's more than even this. But something that we do, this is tricks of the trade a little bit, but you can actually use Google searching to understand things about your employer brand and your jobs and the industry as a whole. So if you actually go to Google and start searching for your brand with terms like jobs and careers against that, you can actually see what pops up, and you can actually get insight into what candidates are searching for as it relates to your brand. And that can give you insight into maybe content that you should be putting on your career site or in your job descriptions. If you have a content strategy for employment, whether it's a blog or your social posts or just anything like that, this might help drive content ideas for you. For instance, with Mayo Clinic and these searches, how do you get a job at the Mayo Clinic is something that people are asking. So maybe there's an opportunity there for content on your career site or in the jobs or on social media to support that. And in the same way, you can actually use non-branded terms in Google to understand some of the behavior around candidates looking for those types of jobs in that particular market. And it helps give some insight into also like hard to fill markets and maybe even some of your competitors and who else is hiring for those hard to fill jobs. And then, of course, we have shown Google Trends throughout this presentation, but this is a free tool out there that anyone can use. It's trends.google.com, and you can put any search terms in here and get insight into what's happening in the world of search around that particular query. So, for instance, here I've put in Amazon jobs, and you can see a steady uptick over 5 years, which is not surprising. But it's more than just a trend line. It also gives insight into where people are searching for this term in particular, and also what types of topics and other search terms are being used that relate to it, which I think is very interesting. And again, can give you insight into your brand and also your hiring strategy. Also, sometimes it'll give you insight into, again, your competitors. So for instance, I put in Mayo Clinic again, and here it's showing some other brand names. So you can start to understand who you're competing with for talent in particular markets, which I think is that it can be valuable in some cases. So don't forget about this great free tool that Google offers. So that is everything that we have today. I do want to open it up to questions. I'm going to stop sharing here so I can get back in with you guys, and hopefully I'm going to actually go on mute, Chris, I think, and so I can hear some of the questions that are coming through. So I'm going to hand it to you.
All right. We do have some questions here. So this one's from Mark. It's about Google for Jobs. So he asks, if you post your own jobs directly at Google for Jobs and are posting them also to third-party job boards, is there a way to make it so your jobs on third-party sites do not show up on Google for Jobs? Okay, so this is a big issue with a lot of employers out there as far as they hate the fact that the job boards they're using are competing with their own career sites overall. So I have a tip here. But the short answer is no. If you're giving the same jobs to Google, to your job boards, and those job boards are on Google for Jobs, Google for Jobs is going to put you all together. There's no way to separate that. However, I've discovered a little hack around that. So what you can do is create a job listing with a different job title. And if you put a different job title on that job and you don't give it to the job board, that job will be directly associated with your own company career site. But again, you can't give that job out to the other job boards overall because Google's going to lump you all together. It's just part of how their interface is overall. So I don't know if Kat or Emily have anything to add to that, but that's what I've seen so far using that tool. But they lump it all together, so there's really no way around that from what I see. And I had a question around, let's see here. So regarding CPCs for other industries, Emily, what are some of the industries that with really high CPC and click to apply rates overall? Can you just name a few?
Yeah, and Kat runs a lot of our paid search, so I think she'll have a better insight there. But I think the ones that you would maybe assume are higher cost are probably the ones that are higher cost, like healthcare, for instance. But financial services maybe. But Kat, I'm sure you have a good answer there because you're day to day in these campaigns for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So healthcare, I second that. Finance industries, IT, they vary. Hard to fill and they're very competitive on especially US markets. So pretty much all industries apart from let's say seasonal jobs, retail, sales, and customer service would be in that high level.
Yep. All right. As far as the ratings that sites like Google for Jobs pulls in, it's just Indeed and Glassdoor. Oh, is it also Comparably as well? Is that on there? On the employer ratings on Google for Jobs listings?
Are you asking if Comparably pushes jobs to Google for Jobs?
No, I'm asking are there reviews on Google for Jobs?
Oh, okay. I was going to say just confirm with every vendor because it is constantly changing. And Google used to share a list of their integrated partners and they don't anymore. So the best way to go about that is to confirm with the specific partner. And I don't know about Comparably offhand, but we could certainly ask on our side as well.
Yep. Paul has a question. Which open rates should we expect to have in Gmail ads? This one's for you, Kat.
So open rate is the same as a click-through rate, as I mentioned. So basically, when they click on the ad to open it, that's when the advertiser gets charged for the click, and that's when the click-through rate is being counted. So the average, what we saw between different clients is 12 to 25%, but for some of our clients, it goes as high as 75%. Again, it really depends on the area, really depends on the targeting and the brand recognition.
Awesome. Let's look at the poll results and we can kind of wrap things up. So are your jobs listed on Google for Jobs? Yes. 69%, no 30%. And have you ever used Google AdWords to promote jobs? It's 50-50, 12 and 12. So there you go. Interesting data. But yeah, most employers these days are listed on Google for Jobs. But there's still definitely a significant percentage out there that don't. So it's free traffic if you want it. Awesome. Well, Emily and Kat, looks like that's it for questions. Give it one last chance, audience, if you want to ask something, but it's 2:41, and we can certainly wrap things up. Anything you got, Kat, Emily, anything else to add?
I think on my side, Adriana, I believe just shared in the chat our resource guide, but we also compiled a bunch of relevant blog posts to Google for Jobs, Gmail ads, and things like that we can share. I sent it to Chris, so he'll send it out to everybody, but that gives you some extra insight as well as the slides, and he's going to send out the recording. So feel free to message any one of us, and we'll be happy to answer any other questions that you have.
Nice. Awesome. Well, ladies, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate the info. and stay safe out there, everyone.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, wait, we got one more question. Hold on. Let's see here. One more question. How do you see Google Jobs impacting Google Ads in the future? Good question.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's a really interesting question, and it's one as a company that we are constantly talking about. And since the launch of Google for Jobs, there was that kind of expectation in the back of our minds that maybe Google would go towards some sort of paid model as it relates to jobs, and they haven't yet. And we don't really know what's going on, but it's certainly, I wouldn't say out of the question. So it's something we're constantly keeping an eye on. And right now, I don't know of any particular impact to the performance of Google Ads from Google for Jobs. Again, it's just more exposure for your brand and your jobs at this point. So for now, that I think is our viewpoint. But of course, we're constantly watching because Google is a massive entity and they could do a lot there. So we'll have to see.
Nice. All right, ladies. Well, that will do it for everyone. RecTechLive.com. Again, I'll send the replay email very shortly. And thanks for your time to everyone. Have a good one.